United Kingdom has approved the Pfizer biotech vaccine for rollout from next week onwards. UK has become the first Western country to license a vaccine against COVID-19, opening the way for mass immunization with the Pfizer biotech vaccine to begin in those most at risk. So that's the information coming in. My colleague Ayushman tracking the details for us. Ayushman, this is indeed big news. The first country to actually roll out a vaccine for COVID-19 is the United Kingdom. Have they formally licensed the Pfizer biotech vaccine for their use in their country?
Yes, Frida. In fact, weeks before when Pfizer had announced that they had the preliminary study said that 90% was the efficacy, and then it came to 95%. It was said that they will be applying for emergency use authorization in FDA, US FDA as well as UK. So the Medicine and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, which is MHRA, it has given the emergency use authorization to Pfizer. Remember, the Pfizer's vaccine requires deep refrigeration up to -70 degrees. So that is something which suits the Western countries' weather as well. So the contingency plan also they have currently. What we are being told currently, Afrida, is that the Joint Committee on Vaccine and Immunizations will shortly publish the final details on the advisory as to what will be the module as to how it will be mass administered. But for now, the vaccine will be made available across United Kingdom from next week, and it is also being said that the priority groups, including the home care residents, healthcare staff, and elderly and clinically extremely vulnerable people would be given priority in this vaccine, which will be rolled out very soon. The emergency use authorization has been given, and that's the news that we have received. Pfizer and Moderna's vaccine has got the emergency use authorization.
All right, this is very big news indeed, Ayushman. And like you said, this module will be studied closely by other countries. This is the first country that is going for a rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine. You're telling us that as early as next week is when the immunization program will begin. Of course, it's a much smaller country compared to India with a much smaller population. And of course, with the advantage of very low temperatures, which, like you were saying, is useful for a vaccine like Pfizer, which India, of course, is not considering at the moment, Ayushman, because of the difficult conditions that it requires for preservation?
No, Afrida, it won't be right to say that India is not considering. India is definitely in talks with everyone, be it Moderna, Pfizer, or the other vaccine candidates who are there in trial third phases. But definitely, the hopes are high on the Oxford AstraZeneca. If you see the current context, the chairman of National Task Force on Vaccine, V.K. Paul, had said that if you consider -70 deep refrigeration of Pfizer, that would be something a bit difficult in a country like India or any other developing country. The government has been assessing the cold chain storage, and that's why we have seen it contacting the airlines and other services as well. But for now, definitely, it would be a challenge for India, and the government has said that they are in contact with everyone, but they are also keeping track of the developments on the other vaccine candidates as well, Afrida.
Yes, Dr. Rakesh Mishra, Director of the CCMB in Hyderabad, joining me now on the phone line. He is the Director of the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, the Institute of CCMB. Very good afternoon, Dr. Mishra. This is the kind of news that is going to be received with a lot of excitement and hope. And of course, it will come with the question on how far behind are we? UK has started literally the process of rolling out a COVID-19 vaccine. It starts as early as next week.
Yeah, it's a surprise for all of us, but it's a good surprise, I would say. If as long as the vaccine doesn't have side effect, it's up to the affordability of the system if they can do it, and they are already showing efficiency of 90% is excellent. The other thing happens is that once this vaccine has shown this kind of efficiency, it's very difficult to continue with phase 3. It's a dilemma. Now, half the people, when the vaccine is apparently good, why you give half the people placebo or water? So people may not even participate in phase 3 because they want now the vaccine if they are going for in any case trial. So I think it will be like another kind of a trial, phase 4, or you can say, and in coming months and maybe in a year or two, we'll know what all is worth about all this vaccine, how long is the efficiency, and so on. I think as far as India is concerned, I don't think there is any change in our situation. We are not going to start using mRNA vaccines in 1-2 months. We have to first prepare lots of groundwork before we can even go. And depending upon other negotiations and willingness of these companies to produce in India, these are something difficult questions that we have to set up. This is mRNA vaccines. We need new kinds of things. So lots of preparation is required for several months. And I would say we should not be in a terrible hurry of investing huge resources on a vaccine, which is still, I will consider, in a trial mode. Different countries have different things, some economical situations, the population size. There are many factors that go in. So I don't think for India anything changes, but it brings a good positivity, and we should welcome if UK is starting this. That means a good thing. We will certainly, if these people will follow it very closely, so we'll learn a lot about this vaccine. Now we in a much more reliable, and because statistically now the information will be very reliable.
Right. Dr. Mishra, as per your understanding, what is exactly our status right now? How far are we from reaching the point that UK has reached today of announcing a vaccine rollout? At what stage are we in that timeline, Dr. Mishra?
See, we cannot even set a timeline from here because both these mRNA vaccines, I don't think we have any agreement with any one of these companies that they will supply us or produce or give us. So that depends on when they can provide. As I said, it will take us several months to set up some kind of a cold chain which can handle this mRNA vaccine, while other traditional vaccines will be better options from that point of view. Having said that, I think India is a very heterogeneous country. I think we will try all kinds of vaccines. Maybe some places mRNA vaccine will be possible. If it is easily available, that should be used.
Okay. Right. Dr. Ram Vishwakarma, advisor of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, is joining me from New Delhi on the phone line. Dr. Vishwakarma, the two sets of things we're looking at. One, of course, whether we can get a vaccine from one of these countries who are ahead in the race and who are getting approvals for a rollout of the immunization program. And secondly, whether we can depend on our indigenously developed vaccine. So these are the two things. I've lost the line with Dr. Vishwakarma. Dr. Mishra, can you comment on this, whether it is a better idea for us to depend on our indigenously developed vaccine? Will that be more appropriate for a population like ours? Or, like you said, depend on the vaccine which has already got approval in another country, set up the cold chain system and do the groundwork for another vaccine to come to our country? How does it work really? Dr. Mishra, can you hear me?
Yeah. No, so see, if it is endogenous vaccine, this is always better because in terms of cost, in terms of control in production and all those things, that will certainly be better. But as I said, I don't think we should go for put all our hope in one particular vaccine because, as I said, all these are in different stages of trial. We don't know which one will be good vaccine. So we should keep all options open. If there is vaccine approved elsewhere, I will be very happy that if we manage to get some supply and start using in our population with initial some tests that are mandatory by regulatory authorities, or if they want to make emergency approvals without that. Because the point is that these are safe. So I think we should have multi-pronged approach. We are a very large number of people that we are looking at. and a significant proportion if we need in a shorter time of, let's say, several months or 1 year, then we have to go by many options, not one. And indigenous vaccines should be the final destination for us, because that is traditionally we have been very strong, and it's just because of the pandemic we are in a unstable situation in terms of trials and all. But I think in few months we will have several internal options as well. So we should keep all the options open. I don't think at this point we can say for sure that this is better than the other. So we should keep all options open, and endogenous production and endogenous development of vaccine should be our priority. But that doesn't mean that we stop anything else from coming from outside.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying we should not be ruling out any option. There can be a multiple approach towards this, and the idea is, the basic bottom line is, it should be safe, and it should be, the efficacy, of course, of the vaccine should be high. Dr. Vishwakarma, another point that is being made now by the government of India is that we are not looking at vaccinating the entire population. Do you see a certain core group or a certain target group being identified? Is that process on? Dr. Vishwakarma, can you hear me? I wanted your comment on the latest announcement from ICMR that only a select group of people will be vaccinated, not the entire population.
Yeah, because entire population actually doesn't have to be vaccinated, because initially the people who are most vulnerable for the infection, because as you know, 95% plus people, when they get mild infection with this, they develop their own antibodies. And those who have developed antibodies naturally, they may not require the vaccine. So it's a scientific process through which people will be selected. Frontline workers, medical people who are dealing with this crisis, they are I think the priority. People who are older, whose immune systems are weakening and weak, and they are not able to mount the antibody sort of response against the virus antigens. So I think there will be a scientific analysis of the set of people, and then I think every country will do that. No country is going to do mass vaccination without really segregating them, whether it is required or not. So it's a very scientific process, has been done in other cases, and
Right.
I think this is how it will be done in India. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Rakesh Mishra and Dr. Ram Vishwakarma, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and sharing your valuable inputs on the latest vaccine news that we are breaking today of UK now announcing a rollout of the Pfizer biotech vaccine. I also have Dr. Sashank Joshi joining me on the phone line. I want a comment from Dr. Joshi as well. Dr. Joshi, your view on this? There seems to be a mood is upbeat right now that one country has actually gone ahead with rolling out the immunization program and announced the Pfizer biotech vaccine as the licensed vaccine for COVID-19. The question in everyone's mind is, how far are we from reaching that stage?
So I think it's a welcome step, and I congratulate the scientific community for doing that. I think they have announced emergency use authorization for limited use for healthcare and social workers and people above 18 in United Kingdom. I think India is probably 2 to 4 weeks away from that announcement if the Oxford vaccine trials and UK approve the Oxford vaccine trial. Otherwise, it will take for interim results of the phase 3 trials of the two Make in India vaccines, which might be a month and a half to 2 months away. But we are anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks away from such an announcement.
Okay. 2 to 12 weeks away is what you're telling us, Dr. Joshi. Dr. Joshi, I want to ask you that there were big concerns about our cold chain facilities, storage facilities, logistics, and the general distribution system. Even if we have an approved vaccine today, how do you see us managing this entire adult vaccination program? Are we ready for it?
So I think that will take a long time, and I think Government of India and state governments are not targeting it immediately for general population. It is going to be a very highly selected, targeted, and a very, very calibrated approach. It will be targeting the COVID frontline personnel, which includes healthcare personnel, followed by the vulnerable groups like elderly and comorbidities, and then only it will go down to the general population. So realistically speaking, before March, I don't see that happening. But earlier than that, a small percentage of the frontline COVID care will probably get the vaccine. And I think the vaccine preparedness team under Dr. Paul's leadership, Dr. Vinod Paul, who is a member of Niti Aayog, is already in place. And I think the state governments also are in a preparatory phase. And most of the Indian vaccines don't need the cold chain like the Pfizer or Moderna, which need -70. Most of them can be managed to the current cold chain of the current vaccine program or immunization program which we have.
Right. Okay. So that is important input that you're sharing with us. Of course, all eyes would be on whether such an announcement can be made in India and how soon we will have that kind of an announcement. But hopes are high now after this big announcement, even though, like you said, at the moment, Pfizer, Britain has announced this for emergency use authorization. But even so, it marks a historic moment in the fight against COVID-19. Dr. Shashank Joshi, appreciate you joining us this afternoon.